All right, well, welcome to another episode of Small Towns Unscripted, guys. This is to my left, the infamous Tara Kalin. Hello, Tara Kalin.
Hello.
This is Nicole Turner. And it's our pleasure to welcome Danielle Ross, who's the daughter of Mr. Otto Ross. Wow. I'm honored to be here today. You might even know him, Earl and Judy Stanford. Earl Stanford graduated with my dad in high school in 1952.
Okay.
And he just turned 90, but you're 98 years young, right?
That's correct.
For one more month.
For one more month, and then
Oh my God!
Nice. Happy early birthday.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Wow. Well, it's an honor, and you have an incredible history. Your daughter was sharing some of your life escapades and accomplishments, and it's so much I don't even know where to begin.
I know.
So I just wanted to start by saying thank you again, and I'd love for you to just tell us about who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Otto Wells Ross, and my middle name is after Mr. A.Z. Wells of Wenatchee.
Oh.
My dad actually drove a car for Mr. A.Z. Wells when he was growing up in high school and afterwards, and he actually drove Mr. A.Z. Wells and James J. Hill from Wenatchee up the Columbia River to figure out which side of the Columbia that the railroad was going to go on.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And is that the Wells hardware store?
Yes.
Of Wells and Wade at one point.
And the Wells Dam.
And the Wells Dam.
And the Wells Dam.
And they had 4 orchards. They had the Azawell ox team on the way to Wenatchee. Twin W.
Oh.
And
Okay.
then one in Sunny Slope.
What year do you think, to put it in perspective, your father was looking for the railroad to be which side of the Columbia?
Oh, that would be
What year did he graduate?
he graduated in 1911.
Okay.
And
So your dad graduated in 1911.
Wenatchee High School.
Wow. and was that the year that the football team was undefeated?
Yeah. And when they went over to the University of Washington Stadium and played a team from Chicago, from what town is it?
I can't
where
remember.
The town where
It wasn't Glen Ellen, was it?
Yes.
Oh, it was Glen Ellen? Okay. Wow.
Look at you. One of the things that I found about your daughter when we started talking about you, she knows a lot about you. She paid attention growing up. I love it. And you guys are so close. And the other thing I thought was fascinating is last week you were skiing at Mission Ridge.
Correct.
And you were the first person. Is this true? Because I'm not sure. All these stories she's telling me, I don't know if they could all be true. So I'm going to check.
Test me.
You'd have to be 200 years old by now. All this stuff. But you said you were the first person on the first chairlift at Mission Ridge.
Correct.
Wow.
Well, there's no one really probably left to validate that.
Yeah, you can start making up whatever you want right now.
I believe there is photographic evidence of that, isn't there?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
But Bob Church and I started to get on the first chair, and he fell. It hit him wrong, and he fell off. So I rode up all by myself.
You've been surviving ever since. I like that.
Well, I was talking to friends they wanted curious about who we were going to be talking to and what kind of folks. And I said your name, and she says, "Oh, you mean the guy that's still an instructor at Mission?" I went, I don't know. We're going to find out. Are you
Yes.
still teaching kids?
No, I teach only beginners right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some kids, some adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your dad and
cool.
was it your uncle back in the day? So did you grow up in Wenatchee as well?
No, in Orondo.
You were an Orondo guy.
Definitely. Yeah, Dad, as I said, he moved up to Rondo in 1914.
Okay, had enough Wenatchee, enough of that.
Now, did you catch that tone?
Yeah, I know. There's
Like-
a little pride there.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the small town pride.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not from Chelan.
No.
I'm from Manson.
Yeah.
Like, let's get this clear.
Yeah. I'm from Rondo.
You're from Orondo, not Wenatchee.
And the
Let's be
Rondo
clear.
school at that time, the brick building schoolhouse is still there.
Oh,
And
yeah?
when I was there, it was a 2-room school with a basement. And then they expanded on one end and on the other end. So it,
You grew. The town was growing.
wasn't a town, it was farmers.
Yeah.
Basically apples and peaches and pears.
Okay, so I'm not going to be good at math, but what year were you born?
1927.
26. 26.
26.
127-26.
Oh, my. 127-26. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like pre-depression.
Yes.
So my dad was born in 1933. I don't know if you knew him. His name was Don McClellan.
Yes.
Did you know him? And my mom, Patty?
I am trying to figure out what he did.
He was an apple farmer
Oh.
out here in Manson. My mom worked at Seafirst Bank for 25 years.
Oh, okay.
And that's where she was also, helped in the orchard, but she was a teller at the Seafirst Bank for a long time in Chelan. But you guys were 7 years apart, so I'm sure you knew it's fun. My dad used to tell stories about the pride of small towns, and it's still here, but back then, it seemed like every community was very generationally proud, and they had apples were a good, solid income for families that worked hard. And you had a lot of them. You seemed like you grew. Then you had the Rondo
Yeah, well, the
Fruit Company.
I have a sister that's 5 years older than I,
Okay.
and she actually ended up being an apple blossom queen in 38.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then my daughter Gail, older than you,
What year was she a queen?
she was queen. Gail was queen in
68?
68. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was an apple blossom princess
Yeah, apple
from
blossom.
Manson in
Yeah.
1992.
There
A
you go.
little bit.
Two farm girls. and-
So fun. That's cute.
Tell me if this is right. So, my grandma, which is Ella Jane,
yes.
is your cousin.
Yes.
So your dad, her dad and your mom were brother and sister, right?
No, my dad. No.
No? Do I have it backwards? I might have it backwards. I just was there on Sunday asking her.
So my dad's family is the Ross family. There were 3 boys, Earl, Floyd, and Otto.
Mm.
And they actually, and I think they came from Kansas City, Kansas, and Grandpa Ross and Uncle Earl and my dad, they rented a boxcar, a third of a boxcar, and came to Wenatchee.
On the train, rented a box. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So before we started, you were mentioning that. Was it you that was doing mail, or your dad was doing mail across the Columbia?
That was my dad.
So your dad was a mail carrier, right?
Yeah, from 1914.
Between Orondo and Antioch.
Between Orondo and Antioch, yeah.
And what happened in the winter? What would you do?
What would
Well,
you do?
What'd your dad do?
His dad, he would, if the river froze, he'd push the boat out on the ice and then hop in, and when he got to free water, and remember, that was the pre-dams, and
Yeah.
it was it was still a river.
I would imagine that would be very dangerous to fall through the ice while you're figuring out what's frozen and not frozen. Those guys had some courage.
I mean, I'm thinking, like, what mail is that important? That is serious.
Sorry to get any mail this winter. My bad.
Well, was it in the old wooden rowboat like the one?
Oh,
we
yeah,
had?
it was a wooden rowboat.
Those rowboats were indestructible. You could not sink them. We tried when we were kids. We spent hours in the lake trying to sink the rowboat. You can't do it.
Can't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Good design.
Well, and I heard that when a rondo would go, like that school district, where you guys would go down to Wenatchee for apple blossom, you would have to get on a boat to cross the river. Was that true?
No.
No? There was a bridge at that point?
Yeah, there was a bridge in Wenatchee.
Oh, yeah.
And then later on, where Dad had taken the rowboat across, they had two ferry boats. One, the Orondo ferry, was downriver from the Orondo, and the Antioch ferry was a cable ferry, and that was above where you used to cross the river.
Nice.
That's cool.
Lots of history.
I mean, okay, so one of the questions that you asked Earl was what he did for fun when he was a kid. And I see one of the things that you told us was that you were in the Boy Scouts.
Yes, I ended up being a Boy Scout up on Lake Chelan at Prince Creek. That's where they had their summer camps.
What? I want that to happen now for my kid.
Oh, it was so much fun to have the Boy Scout camp at Prince Creek and Lake Chelan.
Wow. So you had like big camp outs and you had to
Well,
earn all
they
your
had some
badges.
little kiosks and a big, large room for the kitchen.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Like a little lodgy
Yeah.
cafeteria place.
So I got to verify a couple more stories, Otto. Your daughter told me you became an Eagle Scout.
Yes.
What did you find? Like it's a lot of. It takes a lot to be an Eagle Scout.
Well, yeah. I did. Yeah.
Did you enjoy that whole process?
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very interesting. I got into scouting because my dad was a member of the Elsk Lodge in Wenatchee, and so he would take me to Wenatchee, and I'd go kitty corner across the street to the Methodist Church and our troop was Troop 11 in Wenatchee.
That's
And
great.
then from there, I started out as a tenderfoot and ended up as an eagle, and so.
Were you pretty good at the box car derby? Did you make those little cars? Did you guys do
Raced?
that back?
No.
No, that wasn't there. But let me tell you, she also told me a story about fighting fire as a scout when you guys were stranded up there or something.
Well, we weren't stranded. We were camped there, and I just actually come down from,
Was it Donkey Lake?
Yeah, Donkey.
Oh, my
Lake,
favorite.
and above
Refrigerator.
Holden Village.
Yeah.
And we'd come all the way down and then cross the ferry on the, I think in those days it was the
The Speedway?
Speedway.
Yeah. It's like the Lady of the Lake, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
before that.
before the Lady of the Lake.
Right.
And then we were just eating dinner and lightning
Oh, boy.
hit
Infamous lightning
up
strike.
above. And at that time there was still a cabin of the Forest Service cabin right at the mouth of the Prince Creek and Lake Chelan. And so he gave the older scouts equipment. I had a Pulaski. I don't know if you've ever heard of a Pulaski, but it's one of the tools that firefighters use in the woods. And we fought that all night, and then the next day, I don't remember what time, but the next day the Forest Service finally got boats and and crew and came up, and so I remember laying down on a rock, and that was the softest place.
Okay, so
After
there have been times when, in current years, when a fire has started and we've sat and watched and nothing's happened, and a bunch of people that live here start getting real upset that no one's on the fire, and we all start talking about the good old days when people just used to get out there and fight it. And I want to say thank you for validating that is true.
that is true. Well,
He was also on the volunteer fire department in Orondo for years.
yeah, well, we just the farmers. Anytime a fire would start over there on the Douglas County, all the farmers would gather their crew and themselves and go up and stop the fires to try to keep it from going up and getting into the wheat on
On the plateau.
Plateau, right?
Yeah. See, okay, wow, I am loving this moment right here.
So
This is a good one.
What year do you think that fire that you fought as a Boy Scout was?
Oh, as a Boy Scout? Oh, boy.
We would have been in high school, right?
Hmm?
You would have been in high school or junior high?
In the 40s, probably.
Well, Late
Well, I
30s?
graduated from high school in 44, so I'd probably be about
Wow.
42.
Wow.
1942. So there was this little thing called World War II
Yes.
that was going on.
Yeah.
And I heard you left high school to enlist.
Well, I enlisted in November in 43 in the Navy Air Corps in the V5 program, which was you were supposed to be trained as a pilot, but and then in March of 44,
Because you turned 18 in February.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, January.
Yeah, January. Sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say, you just said 127.
Sorry.
And
Yeah.
we, so then they called me to active duty and changed me from V5 to a V12 program and sent me to Helena, Montana. And I went to, and put me to college in Carroll College in Helena, Montana. I was there for 8 months, and then they moved me from Helena to Butte School of Mines for 4 months. So there was a whole year that the service was paying my college.
Nice.
And then from there, I got transferred back into the V5 program, and I was stationed at, I started out at Alameda Naval Station,
Oh,
and then from there, we finally got our stationed at St. Mary's pre-flight. And our battalion was there the longest of any battalion. In fact, we were out on a survival hike when World War II ended. So, and the Navy decided after 3 or 4 weeks that they had too many aviation cadets, so you could either stay in or get out. And I said, well, I got 52 hours, college hours, and if I was going to get out, I'd go back to college and get enough so I could be a college graduate instead of a high school graduate. So I definitely got out and went went to college at Washington State.
Wow.
Well, thank you for that. You know, it's very rare that you get to say thank you to somebody from the World War II era.
no kidding.
And so I want to say if it wasn't for you guys, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be here. So, or at least we'd be speaking a different language. And
But
thank
I was one of the, I was in the service about 20 months, and but I never went to overseas.
Well, I mean, blessings come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were the backup if they hadn't dropped the atomic bombs,
Gee.
then the war would have still gone
Still
on.
going on, right?
Yeah.
And who knows what would happen? You know, Earl Stanford, who also graduated from Washington State, he graduated high school in 1952 from here. He was on our podcast earlier, and he didn't have to get drafted into Korea. When you were out of the service, were you worried about Korea?
I was not, because by that time I was married and had 2 children, and then, but they wanted, they kept the apple farmers out of the, to be pulled back into the
draft.
service.
The draft.
Because apples were one of the main products that they could ship overseas to the troops. So the apple farmers were almost exempt.
Yeah, my dad was drafted he was 1956. He was like you, but for the Korean War, he didn't have to go to combat. It was kind of winding down, but he still was drafted right here from Manson. So
Yeah.
all of you guys, of your era, if it wasn't for you guys and your strength and temperament and your families, I think we have a different country. So I'm just
World.
like in
Different
honor of
world.
you,
Yeah.
to be able to talk to you and to have this historical record of you. I'm sure I saw videos of you skiing and all kinds of stuff. I've researched, Nicole and I, and the fact that you guys are semi-related is a
cool.
part
Small
of this.
town,
Small town.
right?
Everybody's
that you like to
related.
talk about. I know. Except
Reminds
me.
me of a story, Dad, and hopefully you can remember it better than I can, but I feel like you told me the story of your dad and some of the other farmers taking their guns.
Okay, when right after Pearl Harbor happened, then there were quite a few, all the farmers had guns in those days.
Right.
And they actually they had quite a few of the farmers went from Orondo that were qualified and went up to Stevens Pass and maintained a armed patrol at the top of Stevens Pass in case Japan
Was infiltrating?
invaded the United States.
Wow.
Well, there was some, like
That
in
is
Alaska,
taking care
there
of
was
business.
Pardon?
there was some Japanese conflicts in Alaska, if I remember from history. So it wasn't an impossibility. Now we look at it like that seems weird that you would have to do that, but back then I bet it was a legitimate.
Concern.
Like,
Well, they didn't. Well, they'd already bombed Pearl Harbor, and they didn't know what else Japan was going to do. Not only Pearl Harbor, but all of the south eastern of the Orient. They
Yeah.
went into the Philippines and
And the Aleutian Islands in Alaska,
Yeah.
the Aleutian Islands, for sure.
but also they went down into the southern part of China and a couple of other countries because they went and occupied the south part of China and that area because that they had what do you call material and oil
Yes.
Resources.
Yeah.
resources
Right.
that they went into right at the same time on Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, that's quite a time in history that you lived through. Let me back up a little bit. I also heard that you were a big time hiker, and that there's this little thing called the Enchantments,
Yes,
and you went there before there was a trail.
That's right.
Tell me about that. What was that like?
Well, we out of Leavenworth, you go up the creek there.
Icicle.
I go up the Icicle and then up towards Snow Lakes, and from Snow Lakes, we pioneered a trail going into the Enchantment Lakes.
But that was
Do you
something.
have an opportunity to like actually use the word pioneer?
This is a pioneer.
You know what I mean? Like
I now
he's
know what it looks like.
saying right. It's like wow, pioneered,
Not a lot of internet back
pioneered.
then.
Yeah.
Okay,
But I
well,
feel like he's
that's
done,
next level.
It sounds like he's done that quite a bit in life, like skiing. The
Yeah, I'd
enchantments.
like to know how you got into skiing because that is not a sport for everybody.
Well, my dad bought the skis for myself and my sister when I was, I think, 7 or 8.
And where did you use them?
Well,
Where did you get them? Montgomery.
I think
Yeah.
he ordered the skis from either Montgomery Wars or
Sears.
She was a
Sears.
robot.
Sears.
Yeah.
And they were a wooden ski with a mortise a hole through the ski right underneath where your ball of your foot would, and a leather strap went through that.
Wow.
Around your boot.
No, just to go over the top of the
Of the ski.
toe of the boot.
Okay.
And Dad said he could improve on that. So what he did, he took a old inner tube and cut bands and put the rubber band that he made underneath the toe and over the heel of our work boot.
And when
Wow.
you say inner tube, you actually mean the insides of a tractor tire
Of a
or a car tire.
car tire.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, I just want to clear that for
Yeah.
everybody.
What kind of car would that have been?
Oh, probably a Model T.
It's an old
Model
one
T
now.
Ford.
So that's kind of
Model-
a small tube.
That's
Okay.
fine. That's
Okay,
great.
and did that work?
Oh, it would much better. So we had a little support, and
I'm telling you, leave it to a farmer. Farmers.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of something else because we're going to jump around because you seem to have lived 3 lives at least.
Or 5.
But you taught skiing for a long time.
yes, I
Teach
started,
it.
started
And
teaching
you just
skiing.
said something.
I started teaching skiing at Squilchuck, the Squilchuck State Park, and I taught there for 3 or 4 years, and then Frank Cumbo and myself started a ski school at Ardnavor and Echo Valley and Badger Mountain, and we started those schools.
Now, Ardenvohr is no longer.
Ardnavor, that when the mill finally closed up. The mill actually cut timber up there, and then they made the shook. It's called the parts that you put together to make apple boxes.
Oh my gosh, okay.
And my sister and I would make all the boxes. And one year, the two of us made 10,000 boxes.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, but so we still have Echo, and we still have.
And we still
Badger
have
Mountain.
Echo Valley is still operating, and Badger Mountain is still operating.
Okay, I haven't been there yet, but we season ticket
That's
holders.
where I
at-
went to skis.
At
Echo.
Echo.
I taught at Echo probably 8 years.
Wow.
That's so cool. I remember when I was little, for a school trip, we went to Mission Ridge, and I didn't ski at the point. And my grandma was like, we have Otto that's up there, and she told me who you were. And I was like, okay, I'm just like a kid, I don't know. And then I was at the top of the ski hill, and you were about to push me off as like a first beginner. And I looked at you, I was like, is your name Otto? And you're like, yes. And I was like, we're related. And then we just went down the hill.
That happens to me a lot, he said. A lot of kids have been pushing down hills.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, Terry, you said earlier, leave it to a farmer. Otto, do you recognize this thing that a guy did, that he authored that sounded like God made a farmer. Do you remember who said that?
I remember.
And I heard you taught that guy
Oh,
the rest of the story.
oh,
God made a
that's-
farmer.
Oh, that was Paul Harvey. That was a radio broadcast, and he came to the school shop. Wenatchee had brought him out for speeches in Wenatchee.
Was that Rufus Woods that brought him out?
Probably.
Yeah.
And anyway, there was three of us that actually taught
Paul Harvey.
Paul Harvey
How to ski.
how to ski, and he skied for many years afterwards.
You guys
And told about it.
Did you become good friends? Did you become friends with him?
Well, I just saw him that one day.
Did you say that's the rest of the story? When you
Yeah.
got done? No, that's how you ski, brother.
Yeah, that's the rest of the story. But he mentioned skiing and skied for many years.
That's great. There's another famous person I heard you taught lessons to.
Yes, that
Shoot.
was Goldie Hawn. I taught when I was teaching at Alpine Meadows in California.
Wow.
I taught Goldie Hawn.
I was
her
going to say, I
first
don't
lesson.
think Goldie Hawn came to Wenatchee, but I
So
was waiting.
where was that in California? What place?
Alpine Meadows, which is on the north end of the big lake down there.
So did you move to California at some point?
I moved to California for about 3 years. I built a cabin down there, and then I decided I'd much better stayed up here, so I came back, and I still had a small orchard at that time. I had sold at one time. I had an orchard at my dad's original orchard was right by the Orondo School,
Okay.
and that school is still there. In fact, the new school is on part of our old property.
Okay.
Let's see, where was my? Oh.
Well, then you had the property down by the river,
Sun Cove.
just upriver from Sun Cove, where Gail and Mark grew up.
Yeah.
So you had the Rock House about 3 miles south of the BB Bridge.
Now that rock house was built by Karl Heinz, who was and he started building that sometime during right at the first of the 1900s.
It's still there.
Yeah, the house is still there. In fact, my youngest son owns it now.
Oh
Really?
my gosh.
So
That's
still
So-
a family.
There's a story on how I got that house.
Okay.
Please share.
Do share, yeah.
There was a fellow that had bought from Early Davis that house and a lot of that hillside for raising cattle and cattle on the whole hillside there. Anyway, but when he came over, he put his hired man in the stone house, and after about 4 years, the hired man and his wife, they were going to have a party at their stone house, and she came out on the front porch, and there were 3 rattlesnakes right by the front door.
Oh gosh.
So she said, "That's enough."
That's the end of that.
That was the end of that.
That is
so,
a rondo.
so she, they said, "Well, we'll put that up for sale." So there was about 3.5 acres, the barn, the white barn that's still there,
Yeah.
and the stone house.
Yeah.
And I knew a fellow in Wenatchee, a realtor, and he said, "Well, they're going to put that house up for sale." So I went up, and my wife and I at that time, we looked at it, and I went back to town and bought it.
That was a rattlesnake sale.
Yeah.
Okay, so
What did you pay for it, Dad?
oh yeah.
Oh, I think 25,000.
Yeah. So
Wow.
do you remember Doug Clearwater?
Oh yes.
So I bought Doug Clearwater's orchard
Okay.
with my dad. They were friends in high school, and I farmed that orchard for quite a while before I realized I had a lot of rattlesnakes there. And then I had built the house at the top of, right above the rock house. That my dad, myself, and Keith Allen built that house ourselves. And I remember there were so many rattlesnakes in the garage, outside.
Well,
Wow.
It was
I
crazy.
would go out each spring after we bought the place, and each spring when the rattlers come out of their dens, then I would have a 410, and I would get the population pretty well down.
That also
I took over where you left off.
also
I did my
sounds
best.
like a farmer.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's
the
great.
common thread that I'm getting from our last guest, Brogan Kelly, and his stories, and your story, is that you left for a short time and came back.
Yeah.
And he also did that because why? Why'd you come back? What was the pull?
Well, I didn't sell all my land. So at one time I had orchard there and an orchard up by Goose Tail Rock. And, that's right below the tunnel.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine and a fraternity brother, we had bought an orchard at Quincy. And I would, at that time, I had finally learned how to fly. I didn't do that while I was in the service, but and so I would make a landing strip, the bench above the rock house.
Mm-hmm.
I had a landing strip on that,
Oh my gosh.
and I would
crazy.
take the Jeep and drive up there and take my plane, and I'd fly down to Quincy.
Wow.
But was there a part of you that was longing to be back home, that missed home? That
Oh yeah, I definitely missed home, and the once you got your feet in the ground, where your home was and everything, and even though I moved from the Rondo School up to Sun Cove area, that's where we are now.
Yeah.
So when you were skiing in this, is it 1960 that you helped with the Olympic?
Okay.
Ski
Well,
team?
actually, in 1959, I had become a national ski patrolman in 1951, and anyway, but in 1959, they invited some of the national ski patrolmen to go down to Squaw Valley and prove to the International Olympic Committee that there's 49 of us went down from all over the United States and prove to the Olympic Committee that the volunteer patrolman could handle the first aid and avalanche work and so forth. Before that, any Olympics, before that, the first aid and the mountain control had been done by the Army.
Really?
And again,
Wow.
in those days, there was no groomers.
what?
There was no groomers.
I can't even process that.
A lot more
Wait,
snow.
so like, what did first tracks look like?
Can we say one bad word?
Yeah. Oh,
Say
absolutely.
whatever you want.
So Dad's got this patch, and I can get you art on this.
I love it.
Yeah.
And
We need a picture.
it says YBYSBPAI. I think that's it. And it stands for?
You bet your sweet boot packing ass I am.
Sweet boot packing ass.
Because
Boot packing ass.
in '59 on Squaw Valley, we were packing the run that's called KT-22. It's one of their famous mountains at Squaw Valley. And we were packing the run for a giant slalom race.
How would you do that?
Yeah.
Well, you boot packed it,
You
you ski packed it, and then you slipped it.
What
What
so
does
you walk
that
it?
mean?
Boot packed it means you just walked it,
Stomp,
Stomp,
stomp, stomp,
stomp,
stomp,
stomp,
stomp, stomp.
and then you'd ski it.
Then we went and smoothed it out.
And then what was the last thing?
No, then we
Slip.
ski packed it,
Right. Okay.
and then on the last was, then we'd come down and smooth the tracks,
Side slip it.
side slip it so that
Oh, on your skis.
on the skis.
Yeah,
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
down the side. Okay. How many of you are doing this?
Oh, there was, there was
I mean, how many people does this take?
49 of us,
Yeah.
plus they had some army and some other people.
Are you visualizing this? Like, in my mind, there's just the groomer that goes up and down,
This was-
dirt.
That was before grooming.
Oh my God.
The only
Never-
grooming, they did have one groomer they had on the jump hill. There was called a weasel. That was an army vehicle that had tracks, and it would pull a cable up and then had about twice as wide as that, a bunch of two-by-fours put together.
Just like a platform, kind of.
Platform, and it would pull that up and help pack the jump hill.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of. I mean, do you ski?
I haven't for a long time, but I did. I learned at Echo.
I mean, sounds
Oh,
like
at
a
Echo.
lot of work.
Up here at Echo, you got there in the morning, they pulled you up on the rope and then you ski back down
Wow.
before they let people.
So it
Yeah.
seems like when we were growing up, there was more snow. When you were growing up, I bet there was. Do you feel like there was way more snow back then than now?
Pretty much so, yes.
Yeah.
It came early and stayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, but again, at Echo, you take people up on the rope tow, and you ski packed it down.
Yeah, when you were a
That
little
is so
kid and those
cool.
rope tows, they were very intimidating. I remember that. I was like 5 years old. They were
Oh,
going-
I mean, the first time I took Brody, he was in tears.
Oh, it's tough.
Like, I'm not getting on the rope tow. I had to just walk him up a little ways and point him down, and then just let him go.
Bunny hill.
Baby steps, and then get him on that rope tow the first time. And he's like, again.
Sure beat climbing.
Again.
It beats climbing, yeah. So when did you became after you qualified, you were an Olympic torch bearer, is that correct?
No,
Well, no,
he escorted.
He escorted. So you were the escort to the torch.
yeah. What happened in the 1960s then, there was 6 of us that were skiing down with Andy Meade Lawrence, and she was an gold medal skier, and so she carried the torch down, and we skied alongside of her, bringing the torch down to the
The opening ceremonies, right?
the Olympic ceremony, and anyway, we skied down to the speed skating oval, and then she handled the torch to the one of the ice skaters that skied around the big speed skating oval, and then he climbed up a ladder and lit with the torch and lit the flame, and that started the games.
And what city was that in 1960?
1960.
What city were you in?
Oh, not the Squaw Valley.
Squaw Valley. It was in Squaw Valley.
Okay, so I still want to know where you skied when you were 7 and you got these skis.
Oh,
Just-
in the backyard or the orchard.
Did you have a tractor take you out, or did you have to climb up?
You climbed up.
Side step.
Side step.
Did
Yeah.
you do a lot of traveling to ski?
Over the years, I was very fortunate to, like Frank Cumbo would take trips of people over to Europe, and so I would I'd go along with him, and I would work with all the people that were having troubles on going down the different runs. And
Like the Alps, you're talking?
yeah, we were talking about the
Oh my god.
the French Alps and
Like
so
dream
forth.
skiing.
Well, in fact, the first time we were over there, we were going from Zurich to Lech in the Austrian Alps, and I was kind of leading, going down and just because a lot of those farms over there, some of them had their own private little rope tows. But anyway,
That's so
a lot
cute.
of the farmers you'd ski on summer pastures. Well, I skied down this one beautiful slope and snow on it, so probably about around 8 feet deep. And all of a sudden I looked back and I heard and here I could see 2 people waving their ski poles. This guide that we had hired went and he turned right on the top of the snow and they fell in a crevasse.
Wow.
An 8-foot crevasse.
I thought tree hole, but yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
I'll tell you, that was the last day we hired him.
That was the guide?
That was the guide that my wife was right behind him and fell
Oh my
in the
gosh.
crevasse.
Okay.
It was only a short.
Oh, okay, sure. I'm sure that's what she felt like.
So when you were in France, you also had become one of the first Americans to graduate from the
Yes,
French
well-
school. What is that about?
That was the year Gail was queen.
So 30 or
68.
68.
That summer, I heard about the French Ski Federation that were inviting some Americans to come over to go through the French school. So I put my application in and I went to France for a 6 weeks course, and
Was that in Chamonix or?
yeah, that was in Chamonix.
Okay.
Six weeks course in Chamonix.
Oh wow.
And did you speak French?
No, my friends were very poor. But after the 6 weeks, I got hired in Megève, which was just a little round on the north side of Mont Blanc, and they were really needing American-speaking instructors.
Right, for
And we had
tourism's sake.
yeah, and so they knew I was in going through the course that I was well qualified as an instructor because I'd already been teaching skiing for about 15 years.
Well, I think anyone around who's skied at Mission could also testify.
But anyway, then, so I stayed and taught skiing the rest of that winter in Megève.
Your wife sounds amazing. Was she with you? Did she allow this? I mean, what is
Do you want me
happening?
to answer this one?
Yeah, what is she doing while you're doing
Well,
this?
she was a special ed teacher in Wenatchee. She taught 30 years. A special ed teacher. One time the United Cerebral Palsy organization sponsored her to go back to Washington, D.C. and tell them what she was doing that was ahead of the national skiing for handicapped children.
Okay, so back to the question. You're in France and she's here?
Still teaching skiing, and well, that was before I was married to her.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking, whoa.
He was between wives at that point.
Between
I'm thinking, what saint is like, yeah, I'll do the kids and life, and you just ski in France. Have a great time.
Life happens.
Okay, I'm understanding. This makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. You were farming apples a long time.
Yes.
When it was a good time to be, very profitable, to be a good apple farmer.
Yeah, I was very profitable at that time.
Yeah.
And I had, when I was there, like in France, I had 3 good hired men that I'd trained and arranged to have them to get paid and so forth.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy apple farming?
Oh, I did, yes, absolutely, yeah. But after the year in France, that in 1968, we had a real cold, quick fall.
Oh, we just had one of those.
Yeah. This was the winter of 68 or 69 where it killed most of the trees down to the roots in the winter, correct?
Yeah, and I lost 5 acres of the best Stark Brothers
Yeah.
red
Starkings.
delicious.
Yeah. Starkings are a big deal.
And at that time, that was the top apple
Yeah.
to sell. And the ground here and where the branches start here, then it just split the bark. It froze.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I lost 5 acres, so I didn't get to go back to France then.
You had to get to work. So I have film of my dad from 35 millimeter in Manson. There was a deer drive in the winter of 68, 69. I think it was the same year that froze, where all the deer came down to the town, and they gathered arm in arm and pushed the deer back into the mountains. Do you remember that?
Well, I was gone that winter,
Okay, yeah.
but I remember hearing about it.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
They didn't just want to shoot them and eat them?
There was
I mean, I'm just saying, like
hundreds.
that
and
sounds like a
hundreds,
real kind of thing to do.
Yeah, it was like just a strange time, in that winter. I mean, that was a devastating winter for many farmers went out of business.
Oh, absolutely, because it was just, to say, I lost a quarter of my production.
And you think about that time, 5 acres being a quarter of your production.
Yeah.
A 20-acre farmer in the 60s was a big farmer.
Yeah.
And now you think about what's happened in the apple industry and how
gosh. Thank goodness I'm not in the apple industry anymore.
it was a tough industry for sure. Did you enjoy farming or skiing more?
Oh, I liked both because I liked the change of seasons.
Yeah.
Like we had like the farmers in Rondo, almost every little farmer had their own little packing shed.
Right.
And,
Okay, this is making more sense.
and then they would take the fruit, they would pack the apples, and then take the true apples to Wenatchee or to Antioch to put them on the railroad.
You had to take them across on the ferry?
Take them across on the ferry.
And that was the cable ferry that you had mentioned earlier?
Well, I didn't like the cable ferry, although it was shorter. But you take a truck, and they were limited. I'm sorry, I think it was 150 boxes. And as you got on the ferry, the end went up like this. And when you get to a certain point, you kind of flattened out.
Trim it out.
So then the next truck, the
Oh
cable
my
ferry
gosh.
got handled two trucks.
Wow.
Okay, wait a minute. I can finally ask somebody that will know. I drive by that little building that says Lois's drive-through my whole life, and I think, oh, that's so cute. What? Tell me about that place. Like, when was it open? Yeah, who's Lois? And when was this place open?
Boy, it was open for quite a few years, and they had hamburgers and juice and stuff like that.
But not, I mean, in the 60s or 50s or 70s? I mean,
It wasn't open when I was a kid.
Oh.
So it was closed by the 70s.
But this sign has been there and been
Yeah.
iconic this whole time.
Yes.
it's like this little landmark. I'm like, who's Lois?
Well,
I know, but we love her.
I don't know who Lois was, but my sister's name was Lois.
But a different Lois.
But a different Lois.
Oh, man.
Do you remember, Otto, when you're talking about Stark Brother apples, Red Delicious, that was all regular storage or cold. Do you remember when cold storage and then it became a thing, like a refrigeration?
Yeah. When I went after the war, I came back and went to college at Washington State, and one of the professors was Archie Van Dorn. And he was the primary wanted to help develop controlled atmosphere storage.
Right. So cold storage is refrigeration. Controlled atmosphere, there's no oxygen. And so you can, based on the pressure of the apple and the sugar content of the apple, when you pick the apple, it will depend on how long you can store the apple.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, when they're asking you to pick, because one of the problems with Starkings, you know this, right, was that it didn't color enough when they started selling color versus taste and crispness, right?
Correct.
So that's when the varietals started to shift. Oh. So you would let your Starkings or Oregon Spurs or Oregon Spur 2s or Red Chiefs, all these varietals of Red Delicious, they'd let them hang on the tree longer to get them redder to survive the color sorter. But the problem then was you couldn't store them.
You had to get them into the
they are not lasting
controlled
as long.
atmosphere storage right away.
Yeah.
So,
You picked for that. You picked for the CA storage.
Yeah.
And in the first few years, you got more money for the CA apples. And my dad says, that's not going to last.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Well, that's why they had to start ripping these Red Delicious out. And you remember the Oneida color sorter when that was invented? When the first time they started using infrared? Because like I was a kid, my dad would take me to the sorting lines at Trout, or we were at Blue Chelan at the time.
Yeah.
And, there'd be people there sorting on a conveyor belt. And then one year there's this color sorter that's infrared. So your apples would literally be thrown away because they didn't have enough color, even though those apples were never designed to be that color. Because a striped apple,
like
the
insanity.
Starkey had a lot of yellow.
Yeah.
And then the marketing departments at the time started, well, it would be a good idea to start paying you on color instead of taste, storageability, crisp. So the whole industry, it's interesting when you get back into, I can imagine what you went through trying to keep up with the times.
Oh, yeah.
Changes, inevitable, right?
I think that's when I started getting a little bit
Enough.
changing.
Yeah.
but just the Stark brothers, just because you happened to tell me this the other day and I hadn't heard it before. Who had the contract for those?
Well, the
to sell that
Stark
stuff.
brothers came out of Missouri.
Right. And who sold them?
And my dad got a contract to sell the Stark Brothers Red Delicious to the different farmers.
The trees.
Yep.
Or the apple, the trees.
Yeah, the trees.
Yeah. Like a Willow Drive nursery or a Vanwell type nursery. You became a nursery.
Yeah, they would. So, when you plant an apple tree, it is basically what we call dry root. There's no dirt.
Oh, I've done it before.
Okay.
I did a patch of Goldens for friends of ours when I was a kid.
I have not.
Yeah.
So teach me all the things.
That's actually one of the funnest things I've ever done in the orchard was plant. I thought.
Yeah.
It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, you've lived through a lot of changes during that time of apple farming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and technology and equipment. Yeah. What did you love most about that business when you were doing it?
Well, I loved the harvest, and like we would get almost the same crew that would come back out from Arkansas or Kansas and so forth every year, and some of them would arrive here in the spring just in time to finish up the pruning and that, and then they would stay here for the cherry picking and the cots and the peaches and so forth. So
Yeah.
you had hopefully the same crew come year after year after year.
And a lot of times they were families.
Yeah, families,
Working
definitely
together.
families.
And where did you have places for them to stay, or what was
Oh
that?
yeah, we built our own cabins, and we had the first bathhouse in Orondo, where I had a bathhouse, and I put 2 hot water tanks in series, so that when they'd come in after working, they'd never run out of hot water and showers.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It's warmer than the river.
Yeah.
Before that, you probably get in the river and clean up. That's a little cold, even in the fall. That's amazing. You have such an amazing life. What would you say? Like we asked Earl Stanford, you might know him. I don't know if you.
Oh
know.
yeah.
So we asked Earl what's the key to living a long, happy life? What do you think it is?
Oh, just enjoy each season and enjoy the fruit, watching it from blossom to picking.
Now, what if we step back and we talk about life in general? Like, how do you stay happy in life and not what's the key to living a solid, good life and having fun?
Goodness, I don't know. I just I have a good attitude
There you go.
and enjoy the people you're working with, and you help the people you're working with. You know, I said I'm a teacher, but I would teach people how to do every phase of in the orchards. And so if you had the same crew coming back, you didn't have near so much work.
It seems like you have that teaching mindset in skiing
Yeah,
and in apple farming.
yeah.
Sounds like that's one of the things that gave you a lot of joy in your life.
Oh, absolutely. The teaching and having success, people improve, is just wonderful.
So, Dad, if I said something negative right now, what would you tell me to do?
2 positives.
Oh, that's nice.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, you lived such a full life. What today in society, what do you think we should get back to? Like, what do you think is missing from what you've lived? Like, you've seen a lot.
Too much government help.
Oh, another common thread with our other guests.
Overregulation.
Yes.
Too much government.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
A lot less freedom in our place of freedom.
that's getting worse.
Yes.
Well, and you know, on the farm, you do the best you can with what you have, whatever it is. You find a way to make it work with what you've got.
Yes.
You know, and you do it.
Well, I bet you help your neighbors a lot more,
Yeah.
Oh yes.
right?
Any neighbors, like one year, the Elliots down there in Orondo, we had they'd pick their apples, and I think they were primarily wine saps or something like that. Anyway, and we heard this freeze coming in, and all the farmers went and took their buggies or trailers and hauled all their apples in and got them covered up so that they didn't freeze and they save their crop.
Yeah, I used to put straw at the base of trees in the winter sometimes. I remember that. Do you remember the varieties, the older varieties, like the Macintosh or the Rome?
Well, Macintosh is more. Macintosh is a good apple, but it doesn't store very well.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many varieties that have come and gone. What was your favorite?
Golden Delicious.
Yeah.
You know, right off of the tree, I gotta say, I agree. Later,
And don't go pick them when they're still green. Wait till they start.
well, I can't say I've never done that. I couldn't wait. I was very impatient, and there was the golden block right across the street from Manson High School, and I don't know who owned that orchard. I'm sorry, I probably owe you a little money because I used to pick a lot of apples right there off of the road
He's
and
out of
eat
business.
them.
All the kids picked all the apples. So there's no apples left. That's funny.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, in
remember
fact,
that tree.
Dad still has a small orchard, just enough to keep the family in fruit. And he's very generous with the neighbors and lets them come and pick. And he often picks and delivers. But everybody knows you don't pick the golden tree. That's for Dad.
Yeah.
They are good.
Do
Right
you
off the
remember
tree.
my grandmother and my mother both loved making apple pies out of winter bananas?
Yeah.
They
I
said
haven't
So
heard
that's an
winter
early
banana in a
apple.
long time.
Very long time.
that's a very tart apple, right? It's very. You don't really pick it. It's like a cross pollinator.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
graft it into a tree, and goldens and reds cross pollinated. But then inside red blocks, you would have winter bananas grafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were really, really fat and like pumpkins.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
They're kind of pale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yellow.
Well, some people got in trouble, like they plant a whole block of red delicious apples. Then they wonder why they weren't getting production,
Yeah, those bees weren't working.
because they didn't have pollinators.
Yeah,
So they would go in and graft a golden
Yeah.
or Jonathan or a pollinating variety
yeah.
on each tree or every few trees.
When you were in the business, do you remember when the dwarf root system started becoming popular?
Yeah.
And then we went to snowdrifts or Manchurians, crab apples, as pollinators.
Yeah.
I remember my dad being really mad because those Manchurians, they popped all of our tires because they were so sharp. And I was at Les Rob, kept coming out, "Why aren't you mowing, kid?" And I'm like, "These damn tires, man, they keep popping." So he was like, "I miss my winter bananas." It was a wild ride going from probably when you were planting. I bet you'd plant maybe 100 trees an acre or somewhere in there.
Well, you planted sometimes. You plant. Well, we would plant a block. We would plant, I think, 36 trees per acre.
36 trees per acre,
Uh,
like a 40 by 40 or
and
something.
interplant with peaches.
Yeah.
And so as the peaches got old, then by that time, then your apples were big enough to support.
See, at the time there was only seedling rootstocks, like Johnny Appleseed style. There wasn't this dwarf root system that came later where you had to support them with trellises because they didn't go deep enough in the ground. So you plant like 50 by 50 or something like that.
36. Well,
50 feet by 50 feet.
yeah, something like that.
And then they went to as many as, I planted personally 3,500 trees an acre
Yeah.
with a V trellis. And the fastest you can put them in the ground with a tree planter.
Yeah.
So you try to imagine that 50 feet by 50 feet interplant with peaches, so you can alternate. When one dies, the other one comes up, versus technology and the dwarf. Now you got to do so many. The cost of per acre is upwards of, nowadays I've heard crazy numbers like 70, 80, 90,000 an acre to plant.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is why I appreciate going up Lake to Buckner Orchard.
50 by 50.
Up to the Buckner Orchard.
I love
The
that.
common delicious.
Yeah.
I just-
Maybe it'll
I
come
love
back,
it.
right? Maybe the whole thing will come back and go all the way back.
Those are really good apples. I've got some in my fridge right now.
Are so good.
Yeah. So let me ask you, you grew up with Otto Ross. Here he is, a living legend.
Yes.
What's it like to be the daughter of Otto Ross growing up?
Wow. He was an amazing dad. So we're kind of spread out. I'm the baby. Well, my brother Otto and I by a considerable margin, and so I think by the time we came along, like he had it down. We were just talking. We have a little group text going with the siblings, and just talking about how you were just so. You had so much wisdom, but you also let us figure stuff out for ourselves. So you would say, "This is what I want you to do, and this is how I want you to do it," and we'd say, "Oh, but what about this way, or what about that way?" Right? Like kids do. We're all
Yes.
excited. You would just always say, "Well, if you want to try it that way, you can," and that was his way of saying, "Well, I might know a little bit more than you do, but also you might have an idea." And then we would try it, and we'd figure out why he did it the other way. Or every once in a great while, we would actually come up with a good idea. But he always gave us that room to
Generous.
make our own mistakes,
Yeah.
right?
And then he'd say two positives.
Right. Yeah, yes. Always
love
two
that.
positives for a negative.
There we go. I love that
Yeah,
life lesson.
that's,
And then your mother,
Grandma.
Grandma Ella Jane,
Yeah.
well, Ella Jane's folks were Uncle Harry and Annie Wardine, and they
That's
lived a little further down. At that time, there was right at the bottom of the Aniat Rapids
Oh.
before the dams came in,
Oh, gotcha.
and that's the steamboats would come up to where Uncle Harry and Annie Wardine had planted a small orchard there. And then the steamboats, at the first section where there was basically 3 islands, but there's one big island in the middle. And
Sandbar now, right?
Let's see. That was what the steamers would pick up a cable and winch themselves up the first
Oh, wow.
third of the island, and then it flattened out from there. So then they could go ahead and power their own way up the river.
So right when you go now, you see the sandbar that's out there.
Yeah.
That would have been the Aniat Rapids, right?
Yeah.
In there somewhere. Wow.
Well, yeah, right where the Rondo School, and if you just went
On the
straight
other
to the
yeah.
river, maybe a little downriver, that's where the Aniat Rapids start. And they lost a couple of stern wheelers in the rapids.
Hmm.
That's
You've-
so cool.
And
Yeah.
they made, they used to make a lot of those stern wheelers in Wenatchee.
Oh, really? At Wells and Wade, probably.
Pardon?
At Wells and Wade hardware store, maybe they made.
No, they were up
Way before that.
up 5th Street or something like that. There was a place where they made a lot of the boats.
Let me ask you something else. What was the toughest time in your life?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yes. Two positives.
I mean,
That's the key.
That right there sums it up, I think.
That's the key.
No.
Two positives.
No.
Don't dwell on the negative, right? Don't dwell on the negative.
no, just just get over that one and look. There's always something good about a tough time.
You remember, I don't know if you know my grandma, Daisy Grimes. Do you ever remember her? Her name was Daisy. She grew up here. She lived to be 101.
Oh.
And she told me once, she goes, here's the thing, no matter what, every day, I go, how do you manage 2 world wars, losing a son, outlive 3 husbands, all these things? She goes, every day you just got to find one thing you're grateful for and focus on that.
That's right.
That's the same thing you're saying. It's very good wisdom from people that have lived through a lot.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And I would say just your other big life lesson. I mean, it didn't matter what we were doing. If we were hiking, if we were on a road trip, if we were working in the orchard, you stopped every single day and would say, look at this. And it could be a flower, it could be a deer, it
The
could
little
be
things,
the view.
joy in the
but
small
the
things.
small things. And
Gratitude,
always,
yeah.
always taking that moment to appreciate. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you. We've been talking for over an hour.
Yes,
Oh,
I do too.
Forever.
And I could talk to you forever.
Yeah, this has been so wonderful. And I really thank you both for making the effort and just sharing so openly. And it's been
Well,
wonderful.
It's hard to stop talking.
I love it.
Growing up through the
Yeah.
age of like the telephone, the old crank telephone,
yeah.
and
Yeah. Dad, what was your phone number when you were a kid?
72F23.
My dad said, you got it rough. My phone number as a kid was 2 longs and a short. Anyway, thank you, Otto. Thank you,
Thank you
Danielle.
so much, and we look
Love
forward
today.
to seeing you on the slopes.
Yeah, we'll see you out there skiing again soon. It's snowing like crazy right now. That'll slow
He'll
you
be up
down.
there Friday.
That's his love
Oh my
language right
gosh!
there. He's out
Okay,
here.
I can't wait.
All right. Thanks again.
Thanks
you.
so
Well,
much.
you're entirely welcome, as I say.
Appreciate
Like
you.
my hired man that there, he says, there's always something new that we talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
That's so cool.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.